Okay, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Sisters have been questioning me a lot about the fact that they've deregistered their children and now they don't know what to do. So, if you deregistered and did not have a plan already in place, that's fine. It's not a problem. Having a plan in place is not necessarily what everyone does. Some people jump first and then plan later, which in reality seems like the best option to do, because if you plan and then your children come out and all of your plans fall through, you're slightly more disheartened than those who waited and went through the deschooling process and then decided to plan. When I mention the word deschooling, a lot of the mums that I have as students, or the mums that I work with, automatically say, what is deschooling? So deschooling comes up in 5 different sections. And what we're talking about when we talk about deschooling is leaving the school mindset behind. School does not have to be conducted, so no more school run, no more doing school between the hours of 9 and 3:30. If your child is not getting it and they're not getting it at that particular time and there's something that you're teaching, get into the mindset that you can get up, go for a walk with your child, go for a bike ride, go trampolining, get some of that energy out, and then come back to it. This is what a lot of us would call the adjustment period. So it's the adjustment between having your children at home and having your children in school, in mainstream school. If your children have never been in mainstream school, this deschooling process is more of a mentality shift. So a mental shift for the parents to understand that this child is now going to be at home. A lot of people had a glimpse of this if you were not a key worker during COVID period. And if you had that sort of idea, this is where you sort of think, okay, school's no longer going to provide the work. I'm going to provide what I believe my children should learn, and I'm going to do my best at that. It's usually a time to do things you've never done before. So time to dream. A time to visit that museum that you always pass on the way to work or to school or to wherever, that you never actually there. A time to learn, not necessarily learn as in book work learn, but to learn about each other and take time to plan. How are we going to do this? Who's going to be at home? Who's not going to be at home? Are we doing this flexibly? Are we doing it together? Is mum at home? Is dad at home? Is an older sibling, if they are old enough, going to take a big leap because they want to do teacher training, for instance, and use their sibling as part of that? And this is also time to prepare. What I say to a lot of parents here is this is time to prepare for the fact that you are now feeding this young person 3 meals per day. If you are used to packing a school lunch or a packed lunch, then you are fine. But this is 3 meals per day. When are you going to cook these? What are you going to do with that sort of stuff? And it's time for you to debrief. If you pulled your child out of school for a very good reason, and you had a reason such as, any reason is a good reason, but a specific reason such as they weren't meeting their social emotional development needs, or your child had an SEN need that wasn't being met. If you have a child who was being bullied, this is a time for them to talk it out. Don't think that you will automatically get all of the information out of your child at that particular moment and you're going to give it all of the time in the world. This debrief is an ongoing period. They will tell you things that will shock you. They will tell you things that happened in school that you had no idea about and no idea you were sending them into that sort of environment. Whilst you do this, you've then got that idea of getting yourself or your area or your life ready. So what I would advise at this point is to minimize. Because now you need a lot more space because you've got a lot more time. I would take this time personally also to put in place some sort of meal plan. and realize that you're not going to be at home as much as you thought you were going to be. So use that time to find your community. And most importantly, use that time to learn your child's learning style. Children, they are all different. Once you've found their learning style, I would look at the things that they find a challenge. If they find something particularly a challenge, so look for your child's challenges. If you find that they have a particular challenge or a specific need that you cannot meet, this is the time where you look at your community and you think, how can I change the outcome? And then by the outcome, I mean, how can I outsource? Not necessarily every class is going to cost you an astronomical figure in order for your child to attend it. So don't worry about that. What you can do is swap skills. If you are really good at teaching maths and your child is not struggling in maths, and you're struggling to teach them English because English is an additional language, for instance, swap with someone who finds it difficult to teach math and let them teach your child English, for instance. And then that means your child is also getting to understand that myth of socialization. The myth that is commonly presented to home educators is that we don't socialize. I think my home educated children are the most well socialized and well adjusted people I've ever come across, because they have watched themselves or watched their siblings go into environments where they are unaware of how a situation will play out, but will put themselves out there. And the idea that they also then play in multiple age groups, which you don't necessarily get in a school environment. And that gives you the space for them to have a level of growth. But because you are on hand, you are able to screen what you think is appropriate and what isn't appropriate for your child to actually know. Your child having appropriate knowledge for their age group is actually part of the requirements that the government has for what you teach your child. And I'd be very clued up and go and have a look on the .gov website. I will have the link for the current guidelines in the window for this, and then also in the link section on our bio for our Instagram. This is the time where you get to talk to your children, especially if they're Muslim children. You get the idea of looking at working on their salah and them having the ability to pray all of their prayers with you. And that means in that way, you can rearrange your day. According to the Sunnah. So you could then have your child take a nap or some downtime during the middle of the day so that they have the ability to get up for Fajr, work their way through the day, get to about Dhuhr time and take a nap. Or take a nap between Dhuhr and Asr, or take a nap between Asr and Maghrib, so that they're able to have that longevity to work them through till Isha. So you're not using faith to exhaust them. You can also talk about those things where you're, say, for instance, you may have had a school that didn't allow your daughter to wear hijab or to adhere to the things that you wanted her to adhere to at home. This is your time to teach them deen. But not only abstract deen, to teach them deen through action. And as you're teaching deen through action, you've got the time to connect. So if you want to connect with it, well, you should or to connect with your child, and that's part of the reason why you brought them home. Explore their interests. And give them opportunities they wouldn't necessarily have if they was in school. Such as mine have done things like flying simulations. And then also taking the time to, in a sense, set up your what you want to be as your homeschooling environment. If you're a Muslim, this is going to be Quran centered. Then make lovely plans to travel. Travel is very important in our home. Um, and because travel is cheaper during that period of time, when children are normally in school, it's a no-brainer at this point. We tend to focus a lot on children when we're talking about deschooling. And with right, we should focus on the children and what the children actually need when it comes to deschooling. But we also then need to think about the idea of what we were taught. And that's usually when a parent says to me, my child is behind. And my response would then be, behind what? Your child is not behind in anything. They don't actually have an idea of what it means to be behind. Now your child is working at their own pace. So you do find some home educated children who read really early, or you find some home educated children who read quite a lot later on. But to have a conversation with them, you would not know that that child could not read fluently. They pick up words here and there, but you would not know that that child couldn't read fluently. And that's because the parent has tailored that child's environment to focus on the things that they essentially want to do. So that child may be really great at quantum physics, but just not using a textbook to learn quantum physics. There are so many resources online that were not there before that are there now. And the question that I would, if a lot of people say, I can't do this, and the question I would ask is, so then what made you become an inadequate parent the moment your child turned 4? Especially for UK parents, when your child tends to attend schooling. What made you inadequate at that point? Tomorrow we'll be dealing with reasons why we home educate, because a lot of people tend to ask before they take the plunge and deschool or the plunge and deregister their child from school, they want to know why other people chose to home educate. So I've got about 20 reasons why people home educate that they've sent to me, and I will be sharing those with you. Okay, thank you for listening. Assalamu alaikum. Oh.